You all and welcome today to this conversation about generations in the workplace. So as Brianna said, I'm Sandra Etherly Johnson. I am the Chief Community Engagement Officer at the Flint Genesee Group, and I also have the opportunity to work alongside Bree and her team and the other divisions here at the group with regards to some training, some organizational development, and opportunities to engage. I also bring my own generational lens to today's conversation. As an older Gen Xer, if you will, right? I was born close enough to the baby boomer era to understand many of its expectations around work and loyalty and hierarchy and perseverance, right? I've also spent much of my career working alongside millennials who have challenged organizations to think differently about the purpose and about flexibility, about technology, and about inclusion. At the same time, I've had experiences with colleagues and community members on the younger side of a more traditional generation that have reminded me of the value of lived experiences, of institutional memory and knowledge and patience, and resilience in the workplace. And so all of those relationships have shaped how I see generational diversity. And it's not as just a set of labels, right? But as a powerful opportunity to listen across age groups, to learn from one another, and to build workplaces where every single generation has something meaningful to contribute. Today, we're just going to walk through a few things. We're going to talk about the multi-generational workplace, understanding better those generational differences. We'll learn some of the benefits of being in a multi-generational workplace and certainly understand communication styles across those generations. But most importantly, is being able to be aware and overcome some of the stereotypes and biases that we all have when it comes to dealing with individuals from different generations in our workplace. So generational diversity basically just refers to the presence and interaction of employees from different age groups, typically categorized into cohorts, right? There's the baby boomers and Generation X, millennials, who is Generation Y, and then there's also Gen Z. And so when we talk about this generational diversity, is the impact that it has and how significant it can be to our organizations and influence various aspects and the dynamics of the internal culture and how we work. Now, I mentioned that Gen X was my generation, right? We're projected to outnumber baby boomers by 2028. By saying that, right, does that mean that as a Gen Xer, am I ready to retire from my job? If I'm lucky, I might be able to retire. Would I have to start a second career that will require me to go back to school and do additional post-secondary education and get new certifications to be effective in a new field? Yeah, that'll have to happen. Will I be able to officially retire at a much later age than my parents did, than the boomers did? Probably so, because we're having to work a little bit longer every single day. Will I be able to hand off my prized possessions, right, of the leadership and management skills that I've gained, the knowledge that I have about the departments and the people that I work with and my daily tasks? Am I capable and willing to put that in the hands of a millennials or Gen Y even, right, that I really don't understand? And so, in order to remain in the workforce longer than desired, due to rising costs of healthcare and the need for employer-offered medical insurance, pretty much. And so that just means that older generations will be in the workplace a little bit longer. And we want to consider the implications that that has on our organizations, right? And how we navigate in the workplace. Will you have more people representing different generations in the next 5 to 10 years, the next 15 to 20 years? So if you don't consider the generational gaps, right, that are in your work environment, how do you think that your employment numbers will look? What do you think the diversity of your organization will look like? How will you retain a staff, right, and employees and relationships? What will your relationships with clients and consumers look like, and partners and community? Because their organization structure is going to change as well. So these are just some of the things that have been on my mind, mostly because of my own aging, right? I mentioned I'm an older Generation Xer, and so I'm in a space where I'm kind of torn between generations, and I can see a lot of this happening. For the next few slides, I just want to raise a couple of questions. I'm not going to read every question on the slides, but I want to just raise a couple questions and things for you to consider and what that would look like. Some of these thoughts have been shared openly and out loud, while others are remain left unsaid, and they're left to fester right quietly until that levee breaks in our workplaces, and then we start to see tension that finally spills over that causes conflict, right? And so as we read through these, I'll just read one or two here or there just so that you can kind of get a yeah, try to get a handle on what we're saying. But I want you to notice those that and think about those that you've heard said aloud and those that you've bottled up yourself. I'll just share this one. It says, I'm a baby boomer and I made a career change 2 years ago, coming to an organization as an IT manager after 25 years at General Electric. I love what the organization does. It makes me feel like I'm contributing something important to the community. But these people, I can hardly talk to them. They're so lackadaisical about running this place. It's driving me nuts. What can I do? And that's obviously from a baby boomer generation who's had years of experience, brings knowledge to the table, but now seems to be working with the generation that they perceive as being lax in how they navigate. Another situation. I came here straight out of graduate school with a master's in nonprofit management. This place was and still is in disarray, but I can't get anyone to focus on what's important. It's obvious that they think I'm too young to know anything. Help me. These are cries for help that are put out there into the atmosphere that we see being experienced by our millennials today, knowing that they're fresh out of school and ready to dive into their industry with all the knowledge that they have, but are finding themselves stuck in old traditional environments that may just be doing things the way that they'd always been done. Another example is what is it with the work ethic of the baby boomers or the Gen Xers or the 20 somethings? I don't get it, or they don't get it. Whoever is responsible, it's not working. Meaning, regardless of the age demographic or the generation demographic, someone is going to always feel that they don't get what's happening with someone else. And so, if any of this sounds familiar to you, whether you've heard the statements of angst before or questions like these have popped up in your own organization, it's not uncommon. And they are only going to be more pervasive over the next few years because, again, we're working with three, four, five generations in a workplace at any time. The generational gap simply refers to the differences in attitudes and values, communication styles, and behaviors between individuals from different age cohorts. This gap is shaped by a distinct social, economic, and technological environment where each generation comes of age, and that's really important to remember. While I'm not going to spend time reading this slide to you, I do want to encourage you to consider this in conversation, and I'm certain Brianna will share some of this information out with you all in the form of a handout maybe after today's session is over. But I want to call to your attention the heading rows: cultural and historical context, technology and values and priorities, communication styles, and bridging the gap, right? And consider how you can utilize some of the descriptions and the characteristics that are listed here when engaging in multi-generational workplaces. And understand that overall, while this generation gap can present challenges, it also offers opportunities for enrichment through the exchange of ideas and perspectives across all age groups. So, just when I mentioned under cultural and historical context, each generation is influenced by the major events, cultural trends, and technological advances of its own time. Each one is influenced by the events and advances that happened within its own time. And that's what contributes to the differences in the worldview and in our priorities in the workplace. When we talk about baby boomers typically those born between 1946 and 1964. They have been a significant and influential generation, both culturally and economically. Their work ethic is characterized by strong ethic and commitment to their careers. Many have spent decades in the workplace, accumulating valuable experience and knowledge. They're known to be adaptable. Despite stereotypes of being resistant to change, many baby boomers have adapted to the technological advancements and continue to grow in that way. Gen X, my generation, are independent and resourceful, valuing work-life balance, and my generation is known for its self-reliance, right? Having grown up in an era where many of us were latchkey kids, right? In terms of adaptability, Generation X is quite adaptable. We've experienced a transition from analog to digital. We tend to be pragmatic and open to change, and often acting as a bridge between older and younger generations in the workplace. And that's basically because we still have our parents, some of us, and we have our children that are now the next generation, the millennials or the Ys. And so Generation X in the workplace will kind of have that parent relationship. You'll start to see that in how they engage in the community, in the workplace community. We talk about millennials, that's our Gen Y, 1981 to 1996. Millennials are often viewed as collaborative and team-oriented. They value meaningful work and are motivated. Have grown up in this digital age, and they're highly adaptable to new technologies, often comfortable with change and seek out innovative solutions, although they might sometimes challenge existing workplace norms. Gen Z, 1997 to 2012. The work ethic of Gen Z, entering the workforce with a strong sense of entrepreneurial spirit. If you ask anyone in that age demographic, the first thing they'll say when they grow up is they want to be an entrepreneur. They value diversity and inclusivity and often prioritize work that aligns with their personal values. As true digital natives, Gen Zers are extremely comfortable with technology and quick to adapt to new trends and tools. They're adept at multitasking and often push for modernization and efficiency in the workplace. I want to share just a few key characteristics and values and work styles of each generation. In a multi-generational workplace, understanding and appreciating these differences can lead to more cohesive and productive environment. Each generation can learn from others, drawing on the strengths and experiences that they each bring to the table. By fostering open communication and mutual respect, our organizations can leverage these diverse talents of their workforce to achieve their common goals. Now, there is a downside. While embracing generational diversity can cultivate a more adaptable and resilient workforce, the varied work expectations can also present some challenges, such as potential misunderstandings or conflicts arising from differing values and expectations. For example, millennials may prioritize flexibility and purpose-driven work, while baby boomers might place higher value on stability and traditional career paths. Multi-generational workplaces can also create an environment ripe for conflict due to various communication preferences and feedback expectations and technology proficiencies. But building an inclusive workplace culture that emphasizes understanding and appreciation of these differences can help us mitigate these potential issues and foster collaboration amongst all employees. So, a few benefits of multi-generational workplaces. The impact of generational diversity in the workplace is complex and can influence many aspects of how our organization engages internally. Different generations, I mentioned the distinct communication styles that they have, preferences and approaches to problem solving. These differences enhance our creativity and innovation, and they bring in a variety of viewpoints to discussions and decision-making processes. It's the blending of these different skill sets across generations that can lead to improved collaboration and knowledge sharing. As older employees may possess extensive experience, while younger workers may often bring that technological proficiency. And so we want to leverage the benefits of both of those and all of those generations to create a more dynamic and effective workplace. As we talk about these benefits of this multi-generational workplace, right? We think about enhanced creativity and innovation. Generational diversity can lead to a wider range of ideas and perspectives. Different generational cohorts may approach problems differently, and they draw from their unique experiences and backgrounds. Teams are more likely to brainstorm and develop novel solutions when they incorporate different and various viewpoints. When we think about broader skill sets, each generation tends to bring a distinct skill set to the workplace. Older baby boomers and Gen Xers have that institutional knowledge and those decades of experience. Gen Y and millennials, again, emphasizing their access and familiarity with technology. When we think about improved employee engagement opportunities, when our organizations acknowledge and value the contributions of all age groups, it can lead to increased employee engagement and satisfaction. Employees who feel respected are more likely to be motivated and committed to their work, which can lead to higher retention rates for your organization. There's a small downside, though. Embracing this generational diversity, it can cultivate a more adaptive and resilient workforce. The very work expectations can also present challenges, though, such as potential misunderstandings and conflicts that I mentioned before. Millennials prioritizing flexibility and purpose-driven work. And then again, example of baby boomers and the reliance on stability and traditional paths. So as long as we continue to understand that these differences are there and that they exist, we can help our organizations create policies and practices that cater to this multi-generational workforce. One of my favorites is always considering communication styles across generations and recognizing that generations may prefer different communication methods like email or instant messaging or face-to-face, text messaging, right? You want to encourage that flexibility and understanding in the communication approaches for and with everyone in your workplace. Not everyone's going to check social media. Not everyone is textually active. Not everyone is familiar with our internal social channels and pages. Some, it's very hard to even check the email. But we want to be adaptable in our communication styles across generations. Some still prefer a good old-fashioned phone call and a face-to-face conversation. So taking that into consideration and understanding the differences in generations, we can adapt our communication styles to align with what will be best in those spaces. So when we talk about the different communication preferences in a multi-generational workplace, they can vary significantly among employees from different age groups. And so understanding these, like I mentioned, can help us enhance our collaboration and reduce misunderstandings. A few common communication styles that's associated with these age groups, we think about baby boomers, very collaborative, valuing teamwork, and often prefer discussions that involve group input. They prefer face-to-face interaction and favor in-person meetings and phone calls over digital communications. Very feedback-oriented and appreciate constructive feedback and recognition for their contributions. When we think about the Gen Xers, they prefer straightforward communication and may value brevity in emails and messages. Very independent in thinking, they're often comfortable with self-directed work and may prefer less supervision. One good aspect about that is the balance of those formats. Gen Xers tend to utilize both traditional and digital communication methods and appreciate the flexibility of having access to both. We think about millennials, very tech savvy, right? They favor digital communication tools such as instant messaging, social media, and collaborative platforms. Often very informal and using casual tone in their emails and messages and valuing authenticity and openness. Millennials tend to appreciate feedback and are likely to engage in two-way conversation. When we consider Generation X, highly digital, preferring instant communication methods such as texting and social media, and may favor visual content like videos or memes. Gen Z, often communicates in a straightforward and informal style, and they too value brevity and clarity. Also, Gen X expect immediate feedback, and they tend to seek responses and real-time interaction. Considering strategies for effective communication in this workplace, being adaptability means encouraging your employees to be flexible and adjust their communication styles to accommodate colleagues from across generations. I've seen icebreaker activities and workshops where there's intentionally placing folks in different age groups and generations on a project to see how they work together. It requires training and development. You want to be able to provide training on effective communication techniques that emphasize understanding and respecting these differences across the generations. Also, encouraging open dialogue by creating opportunities for open conversations where our team members can share their experiences and perspectives, and helping to break down the stereotypes so that we can build strong relationships across generations. Certainly using multiple communication channels, combining these various communication methods to reach all employees effectively. Emails, instant messaging, meeting apps, and things of that nature. And continuing to promote inclusivity by ensuring that all employees have a voice in discussions and that their communication styles are respected. When implemented, these strategies and many others similar to these, our organizations can effectively bridge generational gaps in communication and lead to more improved teamwork and a more cohesive environment in our organizations and our workplaces. So one big thing that we have to do is be able to overcome the stereotypes and biases that are associated with multi-generational workplaces. And it's essential to recognize this and overcome them. And they understand that they arise in different age groups and at any given moment. These stereotypes can hinder our collaboration, it can diminish morale, and it can affect our overall productivity. By actively addressing and challenging these biases, our organizations can foster an inclusive environment that values the unique contributions of each generation. How do we do that? Again, by promoting open dialogue, encouraging diverse perspectives, and implementing training programs that can help us create a culture of understanding and respect. Now, when we emphasize the strengths and experiences that each generation brings to the table, it enhances our teamwork, but it also drives innovation. And again, that word adaptability. Ultimately, working to overcome these stereotypes and biases is crucial for building a cohesive and effective workplace that thrives on diversity and inclusion. So know that it is important to approach each individual based on their unique qualities and contributions, rather than the generational assumptions that we all can have. So I invite you for just a moment to think about the things that you've heard, things that you've said, felt, or thought, or even witnessed in the workplace, especially where there were multiple generations sharing the same space. And consider how a few of the stereotypes assigned to those generations in the workplace have shown up and what that looks like in reality. Maybe you've been one who's been affected by those stereotypes and those biases against your particular generation. But take the time to learn them and consider them. And nothing beats that more than just some good old-fashioned conversation. So we talk about some of the stereotypes that are associated with each generation. Baby boomers, often perceived as being resistant to change and less tech savvy, sometimes viewed as work-centric and valuing loyalty and hierarchical structures in the workplace. The reality is, many baby boomers have successfully adapted to technological advancements and continue to bring valuable experience and perspectives in their professional roles. Gen Xers are sometimes seen as skeptical or cynical, often described as independent and self-reliant. Gen Xers are also perceived as being caught between baby boomers and millennials and balancing traditional and modern work styles. Realistically, Generation X is known for its adaptability and resourcefulness, often acting as a bridge between older and younger generations in the workplace. Millennials. Millennials are often labeled as entitled or overly dependent on technology. They're sometimes perceived as valuing work-life balance over career advancement and being driven by a desire for purpose and meaningful work. In reality, millennials are highly adaptable, tech-savvy, and value collaboration and innovation. They also bring fresh ideas and enthusiasm to their roles. Gen Z, frequently described as digital natives who are overly reliant on technology. They're sometimes seen as having short attention spans and being focused on social and environmental issues. Realistically, Gen Z is poised to be one of the most diverse and digitally proficient generations, with a strong entrepreneurial spirit and a keen awareness of global issues. And so you see just with these few slides, recognizing what some of those stereotypes, types, and biases are, and then understanding realistically what we're able to see when we pay attention to those different generations in our workplace can help us easily bridge those gaps in how we communicate with one another and understand one another in the workplace. A few key takeaways I'd like to leave you all with is that in today's fast-paced, right, and ever-evolving workplace, we find ourselves collaborating with colleagues across all generations. Each of these generational groups carries unique experiences, perspectives, and skills that are shaped by the distinct influences of society in their lives. Embracing this diversity is not just beneficial, it is essential for fostering innovation and adaptability in our organizations. One of the most significant advantages of a multi-generational workplace, is the wealth of knowledge and experience that exists within our diverse teams. Older generations bring a depth of experience and a wealth of industry knowledge. Younger generations contribute fresh ideas and familiarity with the latest technologies. This rich blend creates an environment that's ripe for collaboration, where we can learn from one another and leverage one another's strengths to tackle our challenges innovatively and creatively. A multi-generational workforce enhances our problem-solving capabilities. When we consider different perspectives lead to a broader range of ideas and solutions. When teams are composed of members from various age groups, you can approach problems from multiple angles, leading to more comprehensive and effective outcomes. This diversity of thought not only drives innovation, but it fosters critical thinking and resilience in the face of change. And lastly, working in a multi-generational environment cultivates inclusivity and respect. It encourages us to challenge our biases and stereotypes, and it fosters an atmosphere where all employees feel valued and heard. This inclusivity can significantly enhance employee engagement, job satisfaction, and retention. And when individuals feel appreciated for their unique contributions, they're more likely to invest in their work and strive for excellence. I want to thank you all for your attention today in this multi-generational workplace conversation. It reflects the diverse customer base and that our organizations serve. And having a workforce that mirrors the demographics, right, of your community, we can gain valuable insights and develop the services and have the impact in communities that resonates to wider audiences. Embracing this multi-generational workplace is not just a trend either. It's a strategic advantage that can propel our organizations forward for generations to come. We continue to foster collaboration and enhance problem solving, promoting inclusivity and reflecting diverse clientele. We can also create dynamic and innovative workplace that strives on the strength of all of our generations. So let us take this opportunity, continue to learn from one another, continue to consider each generation before you and after you, taking time to understand better the communication styles, and being able to address some of those stereotypes and biases that we all possess and what that looks like in our workplace. So we can continue to build a future where every voice is heard and every contribution is recognized in our workplace. Thank you all so much.